Hello everybody, welcome back to another lesson. Today we are going to be continuing to use ratios further, and we are going to be using them to convert units of measurement for length today in the American, or otherwise referred to as a standard system. I have some shortcuts up here. We have 1 foot equal to 12 inches. Well, you've probably seen that if you've ever taken a measuring tape or a ruler. Your standard ruler is about 1 foot long, and you'll see that there are 12 inches on it. And then a yard equals 3 feet. If you've ever seen a yardstick, it'll have that on there. That's 3 feet. Then we have the fact that a mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So these are what we're going to be dealing with today. Now, these are the ready formulas we have, but we could still convert between feet and miles. And yards and inches, yards and miles, using what we have up here. So the first one that they're going to ask you for is 1 mile is equal to how many yards? Well, we don't readily have that formula up here as a shortcut, so we need to do some conversion work. When you do conversions, you start with what they gave you. You have 1 mile over some guiding 1, right? Now, what you need to do next is you need to get the mile in the denominator for the next ratio, because you want the miles units to cancel out. We can use the fact that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. And then your miles will cancel out. Now you're reduced to feet. Well, we have 5,280 feet. We need to get this to yards. So for your third ratio, make sure you get the feet in the denominator. We can use the fact that there are 3 feet to 1 yard. 1 yard equals 3 feet. Well, your feet will cancel out now. Since you have them in the numerator or denominator, you'll be left with your desired result of yards. So this would be equal to 5,280 yards over 3. And of course, what you got to do now is divide that 5,280 yards by 3, and you'll get your answer. So there are 1,760 yards in a mile. So the answer is 1,760 yards. And that's all there is to it. So start out with what they gave you, put that over some guiding 1. Your next ratio, you should try to cancel out that unit by making that unit go to the denominator of the second ratio, and using a conversion factor to get it into another unit. And then you just keep trying that strategy till you arrive at the unit you desire. In this case, yards. I got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more examples. So there will be plenty of practice with this today. What's this next problem? Oh, good. 3 yards is equal to how many inches? Well, we don't have a conversion for yard to inches, so we're going to have to do some conversion work. Of course, start out with what they gave you, the 3 yards over some guiding 1, right? We got the yards. Now we want to make sure in the second ratio the yards are in the denominator. We can use the fact that there are 3 feet to 1 yard. We got 3 feet to 1 yard. Your yards will go ahead and cancel out. Now you're left with feet. Well, we want to get the answer in inches, so we're going to have to, in the third ratio, let's use the fact that there are 12 inches to 1 foot. There are 12 inches to 1 foot, so now we got your feet canceling out. And it's just a straightforward multiplication problem. You have 3 times 3, which is 9, times 12, that's 108 inches. So, in 3 yards, there are 108 inches. That's how you would do that. Still 5 more. what's the next one say? Alright. 5 miles is equal to how many yards? We want to convert 5 miles to yards. So, start with what they gave you, your 5 miles, right? Over some guiding 1. Now, of course, we want to get miles to cancel out. Ultimately, the goal is to get to yards. So, what we're going to do is we're going to put miles in the denominator of the next ratio. Use the fact that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Well, your miles are gone. Now you're left with feet. We want to get the answer to yards. So we set up a third ratio. Of course, we want to get feet to the denominator. We use the fact that there are 3 feet to 1 yard. So there's 3 feet to 1 yard. Well, your feet are going to cancel out. Now you're left with yards. So let's see. Let's put this in our calculator. 5 times 5,280 is equal to 26,400 yards over 3. Because 1 times 1 times 3, that's 3. So, of course, we're going to divide that 26,400 by 3. You would get 8,800 yards. So in 5 miles, there are 8,800 yards. And that would be your answer after doing all the conversions. Alright, 4 more problems. Alright. 31,680 feet is equal to how many miles? So they're asking 31,680 feet is equal to how many miles? Well, again, start with what they gave you, that 31,680 feet over some guiding 1 for your first ratio, right? Now the goal is to cancel out feet and get to miles. So we can use the fact that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile, or 1 mile and 5,280 feet. You want to arrange the second ratio in a way where you can cancel out the units with the first ratio. So your feet will cancel out. Now you're down to miles, which is going to be equal to 31,680 miles over 5,280, which when you perform that, let's perform the division. 31,680 divided by 5,280, that gives a result of 6 miles. So the answer you're looking for is 6 miles. That's exactly what you would get. Alright, still have 3 more. What is 26 looking like? Alright, so we got 5,280 yards is equal to how many miles? So that's what we don't know. 5,280 yards is how many miles? So once again, start with what they gave you, the 5,280 yards over some guiding 1. Now, of course, let's see, we want to get the answer to miles. So, but first, let's use the fact, let's use feet. Let's use the fact that in 1 yard, there are 3 feet. Using that fact, we can cancel out the yards. Now we're left with feet, but we want to get the answer to miles. So let's use the fact that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Well, now we got, let's see, we can cancel out the feet. We're left with miles. So what you'll have to do now is do the multiplication in the numerator. So 5,280 times 3 times 1, that's equal to 15,840. The mile still stands over 5,280. Because you have 1 times 5,280, which is 5,280. Now we do the division, 15,840 divided by 5,280, that'll give you 3 miles. So in 5,280 yards, there are 3 miles. That would be the answer. Alright. I still have 2 more. Alright, what does number 30 look like? Okay, we have 480 inches. They want to know how many feet is in 480 inches. So once again, start with what they gave you, that 480 inches. This will be over some guiding 1. We want to go from inches to feet, which means we need to get the inches to cancel out. Well, we can use the fact that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Right? Well, we got it now in such a way that the inches will cancel out. So you'll be left with 480 feet over 12. Well, 480 divided by 12, that's 40. So the answer is 40 feet. In 480 inches, there are 40 feet. I do have one more example here. Number 35. Fun one. We have 2 miles is equal to how many inches? So 2 miles is equal to how many inches? Well, start with what they gave you, the 2 miles over some guiding 1. You'll just put a guiding 1 in the denominator. The goal is to get from miles to inches. Well, we're probably going to have to do some intermediate units in between. We want to get, for the next ratio, the miles in the denominator. We can use the fact that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Now your miles will actually cancel out. Now you're down to feet. But we want to get the answer in inches. So we can use the fact for the third ratio that in 1 foot there are 12 inches. Okay, well, now we got it where your feet will cancel out. We've arrived at our desired unit of inches. So now this is just a straightforward multiplication problem. The denominator is going to be 1 because you have 1 times 1 times 1, so it's just a straightforward multiplication problem. You have 2 times 5,280 times 12. The answer is going to be 126,720 inches. So in 2 miles, there are 126,720 inches. That's quite a bit of inches. So really, that's all there is to converting these American units of measurement. Tomorrow we're going to move on to, I don't know if I should say tomorrow, probably tomorrow, but the next lesson we're going to move on to the metric system and do length. We will do metric system length. So it's a little bit easier to work in the metric system, but stay tuned for that. I hope everyone has a good day. Take care.